What if we kissed over a bear trap on a moonlit night? This is The General.
Hey everybody, welcome to Seen and Heard.
Hi.
This is the podcast where two entertainment assistants go through the Sight and Sound Top 100 Greatest Films of All Time list. I'm Greg.
I'm Jackie.
And we are joined this week by a very special guest.
Yes. Hello, Lucé. Today we have with us Lucé Tomlin-Brenner. She is the manager of Vidéothèque. You guys have probably heard us talk about Vidéothèque a bunch. It's an incredible video rental store in Highland Park. If you're in Los Angeles, go to Vidéothèque. It's the best place ever. Lucé is also a comedian and a filmmaker. And she is the host of the podcast, It's Always Halloween. Lucé, welcome.
Hi. Thank you so much for having me.
We're so happy to have you.
I talk about film all day, every day, so I might as well be recorded while we do it.
You told us before we started recording that you are a professional video store clerk. That is your job title.
Yes, I like to joke that is my real job, even though I also am like a creative person, because I have been working at video stores since I was 18.
What
17.
was the first one?
Name all of them.
Well, okay, I count, and this isn't exactly a traditional video store, but in high school, I worked at Suncoast at the mall.
Yes, next to Sam Goody.
Yes.
The combo.
Yeah. And because I had to do very similar work, recommend things to people, help people find gifts for their kids, is other than the fact that they bought it instead of like renting it for a few days, it's pretty much the same job. So first I worked at Suncoast, then my first actual rental store was called Bookseller Video, and it was a bookstore that then was turned into a video store when the 80s hit and tapes were invented, and that was in my hometown. So I started working there when I was 18. You had to be 18 because they had a huge porn section. And then in college, when I would be back home on breaks, I would work there all through college. I worked there on weekends and Christmas and summers. And then after college, I worked at the Family Video in Findlay, Ohio.
I've heard of it.
Yeah, Family Video is like a small chain in the Midwest, and they had some in the South as well. Actually just closed during the pandemic.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
They hung on for a while.
They hung on for a long time, and there was still one in my hometown, and now my hometown of Elyria, Ohio has no video stores anymore because the one I worked at closed in like 2013, and then Family Video closed a couple years ago. So, we're talking about how important video stores are. There's still, 20 to 30, possibly even more around the country. They're not dead, but
no, not at all.
People need access to film, and it's like really difficult these days unless you're subscribed to so many different channels, and then even then you're only getting like a quarter of the cinema that exists that you could get at a video store. But after I worked at Family Video, I worked at a place called Video Americaine in Maryland. Have you guys seen Serial Mom by John Waters?
Yes.
Okay, so the store that Stu works at,
Yeah.
Matthew Lillard.
Is that it?
Yeah,
God.
there was 4 stores. 2 were in Baltimore, so that was one of them. And then I also managed the one that was in Tacoma Park, Maryland.
Very cool.
Yeah, and then that store also closed about 10 years ago. And that was around that time that I moved to Los Angeles and started working at Vidéothèque.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so I think that's 5, right? It's Suncoast, Bookseller, Family Video, Video Americaine, and now Vidéothèque. Yeah, it's like 20 years of video stores.
I actually, in 2007, I worked at a Hollywood Video.
Oh, nice. My best friend in college, John Davis, worked at a Hollywood Video, and he always brought home posters that he would like give to all of our friends. And they were those weird, they were plastic.
Oh,
they
I
weren't
never got
like
those.
paper posters. Really?
Yeah.
I still have the one he gave me, which is the Royal Tenenbaums, which was such a treat.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
You know what's impressive though, Lucé? You didn't name Blockbuster. You always worked at sounds like small, like independent.
Yes.
Boutique
Even
ones.
the closest I got, was like Suncoast, but Suncoast was an important, cool store. And then Family Video was a chain, but they had a porn section, so they were cooler than Blockbuster.
And it's called Family Video, and they had a porn section.
Yeah, I know,
That's
right?
great.
It's like very wink, wink.
Wow.
It's for your perverted family.
Literally.
Did you ever get like people coming up renting porn that like looked ashamed or like they were embarrassed?
I actually have a whole stand-up set about this, and I think we should bring porn sections back because I think that people should be confident and comfortable with the porn that they watch. I don't think there's anything wrong with watching porn. I watch porn. And I think that if you are renting porn, you should stand by your porn. And I think that like nowadays people, if they're maybe people are watching too much weird shit or they're taking too much time with it. And it's like, we should get back to the days where it's like you had to pick one thing.
And you had to return it.
You had to
after 3
return it.
days.
Yeah. And you look somebody in the eye and you have conversation with them. I think it would just make people, A, more comfortable with their kinks, and B, a little more selective and judicious. But yeah, sometimes I'd have really cool people who would just chat with me because I always tried to chat with them and make it no big deal. Because it's also like, I do get that it's like, if you're an older man and now you're talking to like a teenage girl or like a young woman, it might feel a little weird to you. But it's also like, well, you have to accept what you like. And if you're starting to feel ashamed, you got to like work on that. Right.
Yeah.
So I felt like I was always sort of on the edge of like having a man deal with an issue with me. But at my hometown video store, this really conservative preacher from town would come in and rent lesbian porn, and he was staunchly anti like gay rights publicly.
Oh my God.
But like he burned himself out. Like he was okay with that. Like
I don't know if he knew. The reason I knew who he was is I went to high school with his son.
oh.
So I don't know if I was friendly with his son, but I didn't hang out with him. So he had no reason to
know that you knew who he was.
Yeah, because his family, I don't think they rented movies there because they didn't have an account. It was like just this man. So I think they must have had like a Blockbuster membership, and then he just came to our store for the porn.
Wow.
Yeah. You know a lot about people as a video clerk. Like even at Vidéothèque doesn't carry the traditional porn, but we do have like a whole section of like historic erotica.
Sexploitation and stuff.
Sexploitation. Yeah. We definitely have a lot of gritty, sleazy stuff if that's what you're into. And I am. But even so, even without the like really obvious like cream pie stuff, you do learn a lot about people based on like their proclivities, And so I think I'm a bit of a voyeur, of course, as a film lover. You kind of are. And I do get titillated. I feel like I know so many personal things about people. I've just been like collecting secrets via people's watch histories for the last 20 years.
For sure. And
so other than, loving seeing what people are renting because I'm a little bit of a creep, I also have just, my 20 years doing this work, become staunchly a huge advocate for physical media, especially in the last 10 to 12 years, as we see that being kind of stripped away via corporations, starting the fallacy of convenience. Why have things when you can just stream everything through us, And now, finally, I was against this at the time, and now people are finally seeing that, like, yes, corporations don't have our best interests in mind. Surprise, and like, even these film companies that make things we love, at the end of the day, they're corporations who are interested in the bottom line, not in art. And video stores are purveyors of art, their archives, especially now when there's less of them, and when studios, or these corporations put things in vaults and they don't have any financial incentive to put them online. And what ends up happening is what we lose are classic films, silent films, foreign films, films made by queer people and people of color and women. The people and the topics that have always been marginalized will continue to be marginalized in this system, whereas a video store is really a democratic utopia where you can walk in and you have access to everything.
And you can learn and you can discover. And
exactly.
That's a big part of it. On the show, we talk about physical media all the time and how much we love it. So this is music to our ears.
Yay,
Thank you.
Of course. Well, and that's why I really wanted to, team up with you guys, because this is such a great opportunity to, let people know that like you guys like it, and like this is also our passion as well.
Yeah.
It's not just like a job.
It's not a job. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, everybody, there's 10 of us that work there, and we're all passionate like cinephiles, and more than half of us are filmmakers. And the people who aren't filmmakers are photographers. We're all very like, we're visual artists.
It sounds like a great place to work.
It's great. You know what? We might be. Because there's so many artists, people are always coming and going with their work.
Yeah.
But this is just like with the giveaway and everything that we did together. It's a really good opportunity, I thought, to be able to introduce the store to new people as well who maybe haven't gotten to come into the store before.
That's part of why I thought it would be such a good time to do our giveaway with you guys, because you guys just moved to your new location. You were in South Pass for so many years, South Pasadena, and now you're in Highland Park. And I just wanted to get the word out that you're still here.
Thank you. Yeah, there's so many of our customers. We were in South Pass for 20 years. And there's people that we still just have not reached that don't realize that we moved or who thought we closed, even though we have like a newsletter and an Instagram and a Twitter, and posters, flyers, but it's just hard to get to every single person.
Well, hopefully this helps.
Yes. And we do, it's not like you can rent movies online if you're not in Southern California, but we do have an Etsy where like if you're interested in like film posters and merch and stuff like that you can support Vidéothèque and kind of see the kinds of stuff we have in the store, because we do also have a huge, I guess, merch. Again, to repeat myself, we have a huge section of stuff you can buy
at Vidéothèque too.
It's not just rentals.
I have a number of pieces of merch from Vidéothèque.
Me too.
Totes, t-shirts.
Thanks, guys.
And I bought vinyl records there too.
Yes, we have a huge vinyl section as well. And we just got we got a ton of new books in this like holiday season, and we still have a bunch left. So yeah, we're trying to actually, because now we have 2 rooms. We have a big room for our screening and all of our shelves, and then we have a front room for all of our merch. And we're trying to expand into having like a large like cinema book collection.
So cool.
So we have a lot more room for that now in our new space, which is really nice. So we're hoping to be like a stop for people who want books on film as well.
That's great.
Thank you. Exciting. It is exciting. New times. They're always a little anxiety producing, but then they are filled with so much opportunity and, I don't know, hope for the future. Because I think I was telling you guys before we hopped on mic too, we have a screening room now. So we have a micro cinema. Yeah. So even if people out there are like, I don't have a player, I can't rent anything, you can come. We screen films every Friday night. You can still come and see our retrospective films, and we do a little, history presentation in the beginning, which I've gotten to do a few times, which I absolutely love presenting films. So it's nice to get to do that at a video store, which is something I've never had a chance to do before now.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And the way that it's curated, like there's a number of pretty cool video rental stores in LA, and not that it's a competition, but Vidéothèque is so by far my favorite.
Oh, thank you.
It's just the way that it's put together. It's beautifully laid out. I love the vibe. Like, it's just great. I'm obsessed with Vidéothèque.
And if you guys didn't know, actually, our original logo, the picture of Greg and I in a video store, that's at Vidéothèque.
Yeah. I love that picture. Yes, I remember that was my first introduction to you guys, because you put little postcards.
Yes, we did.
That's right. Yes, we did.
Yeah.
And you guys graciously let us put them there.
Well,
oh my gosh,
this partnership is a long time coming.
Yes, and if you get more postcards, you can put them out at the new store too.
I remember we were so thrilled because we put them out, and then we came back like a week later, because we would go all the time to renting stuff or whatever, and I would buy discs there too. I do buy discs there, but I remember we saw a guy go over to the stack and like we're like, I wonder if anyone's taken any, and he like looked at it and took it, and we're like, yes.
Wow, he picked it up in front of you. What a great feeling.
One person picked it up.
Everybody did. They didn't last that long.
Yeah, we should print some more.
We should.
I'm glad you like the layout, though. That's something that's really important to us, because, we are trying to introduce cinema to people. Mm-hmm. And it's like, when you're going online, these systems, these companies have created algorithms to just get you to kind of watch the same thing over and over and just kind of monopolize your eyes, where it's
Shuffle on Netflix. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, okay, well, today we're talking about The General, a film that I don't think most people alive right now that are maybe older, like Gen X or younger, are going to seek out unless they're already a silent cinema fan.
For sure.
And The General is streaming on Amazon as of this recording, but if you don't know to look for it, the algorithm's never going to show it to you. And if you're not already watching that stuff, whereas if you're walking the aisles of a video store, you can just happen upon things. And we really niche each section down. So when you're in silent films, we also have a Buster Keaton section and a Charlie Chaplin section. And we have in comedy, we niche it down from, directors, and then we have actors, and it's the same thing for each genre. And then we also break things up into decades as well. So you will get film education just walking into Vidéothèque.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's a haven. If you haven't been, what are you waiting for?
Truly.
Incredible.
Come say hi. I'll talk to you about film forever.
Yes. So yes, we are here with the General this week.
Yeah.
And
is this our first It is our first Buster Keaton on the list.
Yeah. So also Sherlock Jr. is on the list, on the 2022 list. It is number 54. And on the 2012 list, which is the list we're currently working off of, it's 59. It's Sherlock Jr.
What's funny is I have a Sherlock Jr. poster in my kitchen, and I got it from Vidéothèque.
Oh my gosh, that is funny.
Yeah,
and Sherlock Jr. is not the film this week.
It's not the film.
It's The General. The General is number 34 on the 2012 list. It's number 95 on the 2022
What a
list.
drop.
Whoa.
So Sherlock is higher up.
No, it fell in the new list.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean. Sherlock Jr. is higher.
So the next list is going to be bumped out of the top 100.
Do you guys have
might.
an idea about why? I could guess.
Possibly that it's about a Confederate soldier.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah, I know they worked really hard to get more inclusive with their critics list this year, and that really impacted the lineup and shook things up, especially in the top 10 in a way that was kind of controversial.
Sure. Yeah. And if you go, as we'll get to our Letterboxd section, but when I was scrolling through Letterboxd, pretty much all the bad reviews were that was the main complaint. So yeah, that's probably why. But.
Yeah. Well,
we are watching a film from the 20s.
It's
yes.
true.
100
and we'll talk more. We'll talk
literally
more about
100. Directed by Clyde Bruckman and Buster Keaton from 1926. Yes. So with no further ado, let's get right into the film.
The General was released in 1926. It was directed by Clyde Bruckman and Buster Keaton. Written by Keaton Bruckman, as well as Al Boasberg, Charles Henry Smith, and Paul Gerard Smith, based on the memoir The Great Locomotive Chase by William Pittenger. Cinematography by Bert Haynes and Devereaux Jennings. Music, at least for the version I watched, was by Carl Davis. This is the score written in 1987, and it was used in the 4K restoration of the film. Did you guys watch that one as well?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Railroad engineer Johnny Gray has two loves, his locomotive called the General and his Southern belle, Annabelle Lee. At Annabelle's request, Johnny tries to enlist in the Civil War. However, the Confederate Army believes him to be more useful as an engineer than he would be as a soldier. Annabelle dismisses him as a coward. 1 year later, Johnny is still working the railroad when Annabelle leaves town on the General to visit her injured father. While the train is stopped for dinner, a group of Union spies hijack the General, planning to travel down the railroad, destroying bridges and tracks to cut off the Southern Army's supply line. Annabelle, who was on board at the time, is taken prisoner. Johnny pursues his engine, eventually finding a Confederate detachment and boarding one of their trains to use in the chase. He avoids railroad ties being thrown at him and tries to fire cannons at the Union thieves. Finally, they reach Union soil, and Johnny hides in the forest. He breaks into a Union base looking for food. There, he overhears a conversation about a surprise attack, and in the night, he escapes with Annabelle. They steal the general back, trying to reach the Confederates in time to tell them about the attack. Johnny starts a fire on an important bridge to cut off the Union supply line. The bridge collapses as the Confederates are there to meet the Union soldiers, pushing them back. Johnny joins the battle, and in the end, he is named a lieutenant. Johnny and Annabelle kiss on the coupling rod of the general, while Johnny salutes every single soldier passing by. The film stars Buster Keaton as Johnny Gray, Marion Mack as Annabelle Lee, and Glenn Cavender as the Union Captain Anderson. So the memoir the film is based on, The Great Locomotive Chase, was actually written by a Union soldier, but Keaton felt switching perspectives was the move as, and I quote, "You can always make villains out of the Northerners, but you cannot make a villain of the South." And this was the attitude in 1926.
Yeah.
Like, people still very much thought Southerners were like these sad, defeated people. Later in 1956, Walt Disney would adapt the same memoir, but he kept the perspective of the Union soldier, and Keaton criticized this adaptation. The film was shot on location in Cottage Grove, Oregon. Shooting lasted from May to September in 1926. There was a brief return to Hollywood to shoot some scenes when a forest fire started by the crew during filming caused serious smoke damage to the area. Apparently, 18 freight cars full of equipment arrived by train. 1,500 locals were hired to work on the film, with apparently a total of 3,000 people on the film's payroll. The initial budget was $400,000, but eventually the film cost $750,000. A total of 3 steam engines were purchased for the film. The Roe River Bridge crash cost $42,000, and it is the most expensive scene in silent film history. They actually constructed a bridge and destroyed it. And yeah, one of those engines was bought literally just to fall into the river. And it stayed there for 20 years. And it became a tourist attraction. But
what? That's so cool.
Yeah, but during World War II, they pulled it out for scrap metal. This was the last film Buster Keaton made independently. And despite its massive scope and impressive stunts, the film was not a huge box office or critical success when it was released. Of course, the tide has turned, and Keaton's work has become more widely admired. And in 1972, the 1972 Sight and Sound list, this movie was number 8. And then in 82 was number 10. And now here we are today, where it is, what was it? I forgot. In 2012 it was 34, and it's 95 currently
God,
in
that's
2022.
such a drop. Yeah.
It'll probably be gone, right? Don't
Those
you
are my
think in the
specs.
next
I think
10 years?
it'll absolutely be
I
gone.
think it'll be gone. But Sherlock Jr. is still in the 50s, so I
Wow.
guess that'll be the Keaton on the list. I don't know.
Wow. Morose.
Well, it's interesting to think about like a film that has technical qualifications, right? Like technically the film is
Perfect.
outstanding.
Yeah.
And the stunts are unbelievable. And the comedy is so fantastic. But then it is all coming from this attitude of like 100 years ago that the South somehow are victims because they lost the war
Yeah.
in the way that they should have lost the war.
Yeah.
And so just the perspective of the film is so outdated, it can't be the best
Yeah.
film, you know?
Yeah.
And it's just funny that he criticized Walt Disney for using the actual perspective from the memoir.
Well, especially
That's
because you said it was 10 years later or 20 years later?
It was in 56.
Right,
like
which is
30.
like
30.
similar time period as when they made Song of the South, which was a very,
Yeah.
very generous and offensive portrayal of the antebellum South that took the perspective of slaves enjoying working for the people that owned them. So it's
Yeah.
like
Duality of
it's
man.
not like it's not like
It's like-
Disney was any great
Oh,
shakes
no, I
that he made a
know.
choice that was like
Yeah.
I don't know, moral, you know.
Yeah.
I guess he probably just wanted to be accurate to the original story.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's do initial thoughts. Lucé, do you want to start us off?
Sure, yeah. I really like Buster Keaton a lot. I'm a comedian. I really love silent film comedians. I am more of a Charlie Chaplin fan. I've seen most of Charlie Chaplin's films and not all of Keaton's films, but Keaton has such a cool face.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so many, people talk about who maybe have not had much introduction to silent film, that it can be dull. They have this perception that maybe it'll be boring with this lack of dialogue, but especially comedies, and I would argue horror also, there's so much going on. They know that they don't have dialogue. Like they knew they had to do a lot, right? So there's a lot of cool close-ups of his face, which is very expressive, and he is doing all of his own stunts. And if you grew up with like Looney Tunes at all, so much of like Merry Melodies is inspired by these early film stars, especially Buster Keaton. And he's doing these stunts that are just so funny, and they are straight out of a cartoon. I really love early on, there's this stunt where he's chasing after the locomotive on a hand cart. And then like that flies off the rails and crashes. And then he goes to a neighbor and like gets a penny farthing bicycle, which is just funny.
The way he jumps on the bike.
Yes. And then he's trying to like chase after the train on the bike. And then that goes into the river. And he's like falling off of these. He's actually falling off of like moving vehicles.
Yeah. Hitting his head, it looks like sometimes too.
Yes. He was the Johnny Knoxville of 1926.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so for me, this film really works in all of its comedic moments, as much as I do think like the general storyline is not super interesting.
I agree.
And it is hard to look over the perspective of like, you're supposed to be rooting for the South. And you can put it, historically in context, but it still makes it feel kind of like eye-rolly because the stakes, you can't get on board with the stakes because you're not rooting for them.
When it said one of the title cards is like hero for the day, and it's like great,
okay,
totally.
I know. I'm like, I do want to see Buster Keaton win, but it also was just like very pro-military in general because also Annabelle Lee, leaves him and then isn't supporting him until he becomes like an honorary.
Yeah,
at the end, he becomes like an
ending.
honorary lieutenant.
He becomes a lieutenant.
And
she's like trying to make him jealous with her brother, which is like, what a Southern thing to do.
Yeah,
like,
very strange.
I don't know.
Yeah, so all of that was like very off-putting. This is very pro-military, and I did just really, but all the comedy works. And so that's really what kept me going there. We made that joke at the top about the bear trap. There's a scene where like the two of them keep getting caught in a bear trap, and it is so funny.
Yeah.
And also like terrifying because I just kept thinking about my shins breaking.
Right.
And I'm like, wow, they don't do a lot of bear trap comedy these days.
No,
That's true. We're
hard
missing
to make
that.
comedy out of bear traps.
But it felt fresh. I think that's what's interesting about silent comedies. And I feel this way about Charlie Chaplin. It's just as good as any slapstick that you see now. And in fact, it's better because it was doing it for the first time, so I really like that a lot. Oh, and there's this really great scene too where he's under a table spying on the Union Army, and they keep
He's coming from the rain.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, and he gets like kicked by them, and a cigar under the table burns him, and they like his ear is up against the table, and a guy like pounds his fist on the table, and it like hurts his ear. And because you're not hearing any of this, you're getting these huge reactions from him physically and then from his face. And all of that stuff just made me like laugh out loud. So that was really my favorite part of it. But I did feel myself getting a little like I had to focus up during the parts that were about the army, about the Civil War, which I was just like, this is maddeningly wrong.
Yeah.
For sure.
What about you guys?
Do you want to go?
Sure, I can. You want me to go? I'll go. I think I'm the outlier on this one. I think this is the perspective from 100 years ago. It's not a good look. But I remember the first time I saw this movie, I was so bowled over by it.
How old were you?
Like mid-20s.
Oh.
I think this is, for a while I said that this was my favorite silent film. It's
Wow.
not my favorite silent film. And then I would say it's my favorite silent comedy, but I almost feel like that's selling the movie short. I mean, there's so many great silent comedies out there, and I feel like this almost is more of like an action movie.
It's an action comedy.
comedy.
I think it's
Yeah.
like the first action comedy.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, because there are some really tense scenes that are exciting.
Yeah.
The train chase.
Yeah, it's a one big chase. So, and I love chases. I love car chases, train chases, all of that. And so to see this in 1926, so fully formed. And I love the Carl Davis score to death. I know we've talked about Carl Davis before.
Good.
Because he actually just recently passed away, but he scored so many silent films.
It's so good.
That's wild that he just passed away.
Yeah. Well, because he
know
did
that.
a lot of this in like the 70s and 80s and 90s.
Cool.
But I don't think he was around when the film was made. I actually don't know.
That's why I was like, wait, he's 100,
Yeah, he would have been old.
20 years old.
But no, the score is incredible, and I love Buster Keaton. I like Buster Keaton more than Chaplin, and I know our friend, Jackie and I have a mutual friend, Aaron, who just did a series, well, not just, but he has a film history podcast, and he did a whole series on Chaplin, and I came on for an episode, and he chastised me for thinking that Buster Keaton was better than Charlie Chaplin.
I think they're of equal skill. I think it's a taste.
It's a taste
thing.
It's a taste thing. And I think that technically, like most of Buster Keaton's films are more impressive than Charlie Chaplin's. That said, Chaplin has the emotional core.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm always driven to. But Buster Keaton's set pieces are bar none.
His set pieces. And also, I think he's just funnier. Like, it's more, I think that Buster Keaton's comedy translates more to a modern sensibility because it's drier and more just like a wink at the camera than like Charlie Chaplin or Harold Lloyd or something. And I love those guys too, and I'm not trying to put them down. So I feel like on the show,
You're just always putting people down.
well, no, I'm always like comparing things that don't need to be compared, or like, you know, one does not need to be better than the other. But I am more of a Buster Keaton fan.
Are you a competitive person? Not to go off rails.
You know what? Not really. Like,
why do you do
I don't
this?
know. Honestly, I have no idea.
Only in the artistic realm.
Yeah.
That's where your competitive
You know
side
what?
comes out.
That's exactly it. Yeah. Because board game night, I don't care if I lose. I'm there to play the game, you know, like I don't get butt hurt. Anyway, but I do think that the general is so incredible, not even just for its era, but the filmmaking here is just like you can't even breathe. I know that this is one of Orson Welles' favorite movies, if not his favorite, and he would like study it and watch it over and over. And I think John Ford might have done the same thing because you definitely feel echoes of this in like Stagecoach or something.
Yeah.
But dear God, and I know as recently as George Miller, when he did Fury Road, was like, oh, the general.
Yeah.
And of course you can see that. This is Mad
Oh,
Max.
that's fascinating.
Yeah.
I love that
But
comparison.
I love the era. Yeah, it's on the wrong side of history. I love the era, and I love trains. It's like I'm 5 years old. I love trains. But like, it's just so good. And the thing about Buster Keaton is that you always feel like he's putting himself in danger for so many of these shots. And it's just, you got to admire it. He's going all out in a way that Chaplin and Harold Lloyd never quite did. And I don't blame them because I would not have. But he risks his life for a lot of these scenes. And I think
they're real trains.
They're real trains. And he's doing crazy shit on them. Like truly crazy shit. You're talking about the push car. Anytime I see a push car, all I can think of is Dick York from Bewitched. That's how he fucked his back up. He was on a movie and he was with another actor and they were like on one of those push cars. And another guy like pushed it all the way down and Dick York went to go. It just like didn't go. And that's how his back got messed up. That's how he got off Bewitched and was on pain meds for the rest of his life. And eventually just like became an alcoholic because he fucked his back up on one of those push carts. Yeah.
Wow.
So I'm like so terrified of those things.
You're like, don't ever cast me in a push car movie.
Exactly. Please don't. So yeah, I love this movie. I think, and it's like 75 minutes or something.
Yeah. It's a perfect length. Bring back the 70-minute movie.
Yes.
Movies don't need to be 3 hours. Every now and then there's good ones, but like I feel like we're erring on the side of these extremely long films now. And I'm a short filmmaker, and I don't feel like short films don't get respect. There isn't a theater that shows them except for when it's Oscar shorts time, and that's only really in the big cities.
Yeah.
And I'm a judge at a festival that primarily programs shorts, so I'm watching shorts all year, all the time. And you can do so much in under 30 minutes and under 60 minutes, and like we have these like totally just for no reason at all. These like, oh, it has to be 90 minutes. I'm like,
I know.
You can tell a great story in 70 minutes, 60 minutes, 50 minutes.
It's like a lot of great films from old Hollywood are like 75, 80 minutes long. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Bring
economical.
Yeah.
I think you said that about this story too. It
Yeah.
really packs a punch Like they tell such a pretty full story.
Yeah,
very quickly.
It's a simple story, but it's told very clearly. You always know where you are, what the stakes are, the immediate surroundings. Like they're just so good at covering the sense of space and time. And yeah, sorry, Jackie.
No,
I'm rambling at this point.
you weren't.
No, it's interesting.
No, I mean, yeah, initial thoughts. Wow. I don't really, I'm the outlier here because I don't really consider myself like a silent film person.
What?
I'm not.
But
And,
wait,
like,
the ones we've done before.
But that's what I was going to say. So like doing the podcast is really great because I've watched so many great silent films. And like, I think I've come to the conclusion that I like spectacle. Like we did like Passion of Joan of Arc. I like
Intolerance.
Metropolis I love. We haven't done that yet.
Not yet.
No.
Soon, actually.
Like I like the spectacle of silent films, but like slapstick, I'm not a huge fan. Like highly entertaining, great time. Am I emotional about it? No. But it's a great time. But this movie, like it's so impressive. I thoroughly enjoyed this movie.
Wait, was this your first time seeing it?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
So,
cool.
yeah, like thoroughly enjoyed it. It's fun, but similar to Lucé, I found myself kind of getting lost. Like I'll bring up a few things. Like I lost track of like who was in what train. I lost track of like what wall they were breaking down and like who and where's the other train. Like that kind of, I got a little bit lost there. Yeah, so like that stuff, whatever. And then obviously the side of history it's on. But like as I said, these films, it's so technically impressive. Truly, I was in awe. Like it is an incredible feat, and he is, like you said, putting himself in danger. It's knowing that he's doing all of that. He's actually doing that. But I wish I had like a Martin Scorsese like story about this movie. I feel like every time Martin Scorsese talks about an old movie, he says like, I was a child and it was on TV and instantly I knew I wanted to be a director. Like I feel like if I saw this, that's why I asked you how old you were. I feel like if I saw this when I was really young, like, yeah, maybe I'd have this emotional connection to it. But yeah, I don't know. I like Sherlock Jr. more.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, because it's about movies and it's
Right.
like that whole thing of like he goes
The
in.
magic.
Yeah.
It's like half the length, too.
Yeah.
I do love movies about movies. I'm like
Movies
such a
about
nerd
movies.
and such a sucker. Like
And
last
it's
year
so
there were like 3 of
beautiful.
them and I'm like, I love it. Keep
It's
them
so
coming.
beautiful.
Yeah, agreed.
And yeah.
Wait, I just to piggyback, you did say something, the Martin Scorsese moment. I forgot I sort of did have one with this. I first saw this at home, but like time 2 or time 3 I saw this. I had just started a job that I was miserable in, and this was playing at the Vista Theater in Los Feliz.
best.
The Secret
Nice.
Movie Club used to do a thing there.
Oh, very cool.
And this was playing a Saturday like morning. And I was like, yes, the General. So I went by myself and I was just feeling bad about this job that I had started and hated. And this just like completely changed my mood.
That's
and I'd seen it before,
nice.
but it's just like sitting in a theater in the year like 2018 or 2019 and like with people just like sitting enjoying the General on a Saturday morning was like the most delightful thing.
I would
That's
love
really
to see this in a
nice.
theater.
Me too.
I
Me
think
too.
silent film is really fun. In a theater, it's actually easier to watch.
Yeah.
I saw Robin Hood, the Douglas Fairbanks film, the first film that premiered at the Egyptian Theater in Hollywood. I saw that at, do you know Last Remaining Seats? It's like the LA
No.
Theater like Historical Foundation. It's an event they do every summer for their members. So they open up the big movie palaces downtown on Broadway. And they screen classic
I
films
think I've heard
there.
of this.
That's so cool.
It's very cool. So I saw Robin Hood at the Orpheum Theater
That's so cool.
downtown with a full orchestra accompaniment.
See, that's the
That's
magic with the
amazing.
silent
Yeah.
movies is when you can get that orchestra thing.
It's
When
called
the
Last
orchestral
Remaining
accompaniment.
Seat.
Yeah.
Last Remaining Seats.
And it's just an event they do once a year, or
Yeah, it's just in the summer, and then they program for a few weeks at the different
That is
theaters. So
so
they open up
cool.
like the $1 Million Theater and the Los Angeles Theater, and
Oh, okay.
they do the United Artists Theater.
that's so cool.
Yeah, it's really neat. I saw Psycho at the Los Angeles Theater at another summer, and yeah,
Nice.
they do great events, and the money goes towards restoring and preserving these theaters that are over 100 years old also.
Yeah.
But it's cool to see a silent film in a theater that like originally
I
showed
can
those
imagine.
films.
I know.
You know?
That
Yeah.
sounds really fun.
So
I'd
yeah,
love
I
to do
recommend that to people who like haven't gotten into silent film or they want to get into it more. Like sometimes Halloween, I've seen a lot of different theaters. program like Nosferatu, which is really great also to see with an audience, or the Cabinet of
Yes.
Dr. Caligari,
That's
which
cool.
I've never seen on projected before, but I can only imagine it looks
That
so
would be really
beautiful.
fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh God.
So Greg, you said something about like the physicality of this movie.
Yeah.
And so we just came, well, I guess not just, but we came back from a break recently, and over the break I was reading a little bit about like film theory. I read this just like intro to film theory book, and it was really, really interesting. And in it was about like how much Andre Bazin loved these slapstick comedians, these silent slapstick comedians, because he was a realist, and he was saying like those silent slapstick guys were doing realism before anyone. And like he placed it against like Russian formalism, like the montage and like, you know, Battleship Potemkin and stuff. And he's
Eisenstein.
like, it's so like, this is its own type of realism. It's just like the deep focus. They're doing all of these things. It's based in physics. Like it's literally based in like human interaction with the physical world, and they're actually doing these stunts. And so when I was watching it, like that was in the back of my mind, and it was so nice. Like, yeah, the gorgeous, just like the wide shots really blew my mind. Like him walking to her house, like that gorgeous, just like
It's
nice-
beautifully shot.
It is.
Yeah.
And then when they're in the house, like the living room, incredible. Also, who are those children? Do you guys know who those children are?
No.
Why are they there? Why did they follow him?
That happened to me a lot for the movie, where I was
Right?
just like,
That
I'm
was
not
another
sure
thing.
who all of these characters are. I
just
know
to-
him and her, and after that, I
Yes.
wasn't even always sure which soldiers we were looking
Oh,
at.
yeah, totally. And even like, this is getting off topic, but at the end when that Union guy wakes up
Yeah, yeah.
in the train, I was like, where did that guy come? He was there. He knocked him out.
You know what? I would almost argue. It's funny because I also don't know who those people are, but like I never thought about it. And I legitimately, in the way that Lucé was talking about Merry Melodies and stuff, it's just him and the woman he loves and the bad guys.
Yeah, that's
like,
a good point.
And they're just kind of like, I never, strangely with this movie, I never was like, wait, who's that guy and who's that? I was just like, oh, there's the foils and they're,
I do think I
true.
was putting like a modern, I don't know, critique on it, or I was just like thinking of it from like a modern cinema standpoint, which is so hard to do, like to really try to remove yourself from.
It
It's so
is.
different from the way that films
Yeah.
look and are put together now.
yeah.
And I don't necessarily think that that's a takeaway, or I don't think that's a negative to the film that like you can't tell who people are. I think it just like for me, it was hard for me to stay with
I
it in
agree.
the moments that didn't have comedy, because I was like, what?
Yeah.
I
no, I
agree.
hear you.
But the film has so much more going for it that it's just incredible. And yeah, like just the fact that it's shot on location.
Yeah.
Like that's just like classic
So
realism,
cool.
and just I don't know, they're actually doing the things.
That's such a great point. I would have never thought of slapstick as realism.
That's what he was saying, yeah, in the book. And it's like
That's
they
what
were doing it
Andre
way before,
Bazin
like
said?
way before the new wave. It was like slapstick comedy. That was the realism, and it's true in a
Yeah.
way. Like,
Yeah.
Wow, I'm gonna start saying that about the Jackass films.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Those are
It's the
realist
wide
art.
shots.
Yeah.
and yeah, actually, like the train's actually moving. He's jumping off a real moving train. Yeah, and the freaking bridge collapse, you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
Like,
built
he
a real
actually
bridge.
built a bridge
So
and made
cool.
it collapse.
That's one
with
of-
a train.
I would say maybe top 5 most iconic sequences in silent cinema.
I
Maybe
think it's
I don't.
Definitely.
incredible. And then the shot right after it, it's like the Confederates coming. No, I'm sorry. The Union soldiers are like moving forward, and then in the same shot, the Confederates are bending down. Do you guys know what shot I'm talking about?
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
It's like right after the train collapses.
Well, it's funny. I mean, it's an astonishing scene, and it's a great cap to the movie, but still, like Intolerance. Like we did Intolerance for the show, and there's those opulent sets with thousands of extras, and like
it's incredible.
yeah. So like this is really incredible, but like those are almost in a weird way more impressive. I don't know.
Well, yeah, but those are like historical in a way.
Yeah, I guess
it's
just
a
the
very
grand
time in history that it's about.
Yeah.
But I think the sweep in this is huge. What about
Yeah.
like the shot of him initially running after the train, and the train's going in the distance, and it's this deep focus, and it's like
Oh yeah.
the wilderness.
The wilderness. Yeah.
I don't know. I was blown away.
Yeah, no, totally. I love the whole feel, and the Carl Davis score plays into this, of the just Civil War era America, like the frontier. I'm such a like, I love Frontierland at Disneyland. You just like
I also like Frontierland at Disneyland.
I love westerns. Like, I'm just a sucker for all of that stuff.
You know, you guys are really making me rethink what my position was early on, because it's an interesting sort of thought experiment, I feel like, with films that are about where the social politics have changed, right? And it's like you almost can't apply a modern lens on it, even though it was still, I would argue, still very wrong at the time. And like they were still dealing with such violent racism in the South against Black people and in the North as well. So it's hard because it's like, yeah, even at that time, there were abolitionists and there were people working towards civil rights. And I'm sure even at the time, people were like, oh, I don't know about this, just like they were with Song of the South.
Yeah, I was just going to say exactly, just like they were in Song of the South.
Birth of a Nation, too, before
Birth of a Nation, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like, I don't know, it's complicated. I mean, racism and bigotry is not complicated. It's very straightforward. But like with something that is still so, there really hasn't been another movie made like this where they build a bridge and use a real train and collapse it. Like that technically should belong on like a top list of amazing films. But I don't know. I guess you have to think about the criteria, right? And it's like, can one of the greatest films also have this like really distasteful,
it's complicated
programming where it's like, yeah, that sucked at the time. I don't want to have it just be like, oh, it was the time period.
Right.
Like, yes, there were white viewpoints about the South being like this
tragic,
like, sad and tragic. But that's not how everybody felt, you know?
Yeah.
There's plenty of people who knew it was wrong at the time. So it's like, I don't know. I think it's worth discussing because there's plenty of movies that are problematic or they have a social perspective that is not the same perspective we have now, and they're still valuable, important films, and we do need to see things through the time that they were made as well, and not just push them off because they have a different, you know, time period attached to them.
Where's he from?
That's a good question.
I don't know anything about Buster Keaton, the man.
Yeah, I don't.
Look up where he's from.
He's cute, I'll tell you that.
He is cute.
He's so cute.
He's got incredible bone structure. I was like, this man would kill today. I could see him like in a like leading a band, you know, as a singer. Like, just seems like many men I've walked by in Silver Lake.
Yes, 100%.
He's from Kansas.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, Kansas was Southern.
Yeah, so like I don't know. It's kind of like I feel like in school, they always made us learn about the author before we read a piece, just about how
the
his
framework.
biography takes, I mean, how it shows in his work, right? I mean, like, so I guess that's kind of like how I looked at this, or how I look at films as well. Of course, not that it's right, but
I think you can say like this is wrong now and it was wrong then, and it's also a technical masterpiece.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really, I always reference like Roman Polanski is like a rapist of underage children, but he made films that I love. Like I love Rosemary's Baby. It's an incredible film made by a lot of very talented people, and he's still a piece of shit.
Yeah.
And it's still like a really fascinating feminist film, and I think there's an interesting discussion to be had about like this abusive man that made a film about a woman being abused that comes across as very feminist.
Yeah. 100%.
So I think art in general isn't necessarily supposed to be right or wrong. And sometimes I think now, because a lot of people are like waking up to social injustices or thinking about it for the first time, they're viewing their experiences, you know, through art, when art's not necessarily meant to be talked about in that way.
Yeah.
And so there has to be like a level of understanding things historically, but then also just art's supposed to make you feel things, and sometimes it's supposed to make you really upset, and whatever is coming off of it for you, that is like a valid part of what makes it good or interesting.
Yeah,
work.
I completely agree.
Like you're not just supposed to be handheld by film all the time.
Right. No, I completely agree, and I think the thing about The General is that the setting is just the setting. I think, like, I don't agree. But it's literally like they wanted to make a chase movie on a train, and then they're like, where can we do it? And like, oh, let's put it in the Civil War. Like, for me, it's not so much like a political movie, although it sounds like maybe it kind of was for him or them, him and Clyde Bruckman. But I think it's easy for me to remove myself, and obviously everyone's different, and maybe I can remove myself too easily from, you know, the setting of the film and the film's viewpoint. But like, really, for me, it's a train chase. Like, it sounds like it. Like, and for me, that's what I'm, you know.
It's also interesting that it starts by saying like he has two loves, his train and the girl.
Yes.
Like he is not himself a patriotic person in the movie.
Yeah.
Like she's the one that makes him enlist. He's scared. He doesn't want to do it.
Yeah. That's true. He's just doing it for her. Yeah.
But
So
then
really,
again, I don't
she
know.
sucks.
Yeah.
She sucks. Yeah, she does kind of suck.
No,
honestly.
she definitely sucks because she like withholds her love and basically
Yeah,
acts like
she's,
he's
like-
a beta because he won't join the war.
Yeah, and she's like touching her brother's medals and chest, and I'm like, sis, are you really?
Yeah.
Are you really trying to make him jealous with your brother?
White racists in the South in the 1800s are freaks.
Yeah.
Like,
Yes.
it portrayed them accurately.
Like, this should have gone further.
Do you guys?
Yeah. I want to see them making out.
Yeah.
Do you guys think? Yeah. Do you guys think the title card? This is not related to how she's awful, but it's related to her. When they're in the forest, and then the title card says like, "After a nice, quiet, refreshing night's rest."
Oh, they
do
had
you guys think
sex?
that's like tongue in cheek? Yeah. Do you guys think?
Maybe.
I think
I
so.
think
Immediately
so.
when I saw it, I laughed. Like when I read that title card, I laughed.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I thought that was good.
Because that was after the bear trap, right?
Yeah, it's after the bear trap.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking like, oh, these are two people who are almost like lost their lives to a bear trap. Their
And lightning.
Yeah, their heartbeats have to be going, and now they've found comfort in
sure.
each other's arms. And
Do you guys like the tablecloth shot where he sees her through the tablecloth?
eye
oh,
for
I
the
love
tablecloth.
so cool. Yeah, I love that
If
too.
that's what Hitchcock was taking in Psycho.
Oh
but-
my gosh.
Yeah.
No, I don't
love
know.
that.
But no, the movie is funny. Like, there's plenty of great laughs. I like when he's touching the man's muscles when he's rejected
Uh-huh.
from enlisting.
Yeah.
And he's like feeling his muscles, and then he feels the other man's muscles. And then I heard there was one of the critiques at the time was that like you shouldn't make a funny war movie.
Right.
Like
Oh,
men
that's
were actually
interesting.
dying. And here he is with his sword that just flings out and
Yeah.
stabs a guy, and he's dead.
Well, the
But
guy
I
was
thought that
shooting
was
all of them.
hilarious.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Well, what's interesting too is like they're very close to World War One.
Yeah.
That was like less than 10 years ago. And so it's like they're not going to make a film about World War One. That's like too soon.
Yeah.
But like, even though, you know, the Civil War was not that long ago in relation to the 20s, it's still like pretty long ago for them.
Yeah.
Like they weren't involved in
Right.
it. Maybe their parents were.
yeah.
So I do think there's like that removal where it's like, well, yeah, we can make fun of this. Enough time has passed.
Yeah.
Right. Is this the first war comedy? I'm trying to think.
I don't know off the top of my head, but I would assume that it is
Right?
because this is 26 and then The Dictator is like a few years after this.
Yeah, I think that The Dictator was like 40. I think it was like 42 or something. Because it's one of those weird. That one's a talkie, right? Yeah, that one's a talkie.
Yeah.
Yeah. So no, this has hey,
Probably one of the
Buster got
first.
there first. What can I say?
Probably one of the first. I love the moment where she's in a bag, right? She's in like a sack.
Oh yeah.
And he puts it in the train, and then he's watching all the things being piled on
Yeah.
top of her. That part was hilarious.
What about, I really like the water scene too.
I love the
Oh,
water
yeah.
stuff.
The different pipes like just kept getting hit with the water.
And I love the cannon. The cannon
Cannon
is
was
genius.
good.
yeah.
And the fact that like it just like the curve in the track is the reason it
See,
It hits the
it's
other
good.
train.
It's moments like that
Yeah,
where you're
where-
just like,
I
they
agree.
got every detail of this. It's genuinely suspenseful. And one thing after another has to go wrong, right? Like he lights the cannon.
and then it's slowly
And then it
falling
slowly
every time
falls
it hits.
down, and then his foot gets
foot is
stuck in the
stuck.
thing. Yeah, it's like
It's good. That
beautiful.
moment's
It's a
great.
beautiful set piece.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's like dancing.
Yeah,
right?
exactly,
It's
it is.
choreography.
Yeah.
I think really the best comedy has that quality to it.
Totally.
And that's why it's, you know, comedy is very much treated like anybody can do it because in life we joke around with each other. It's a part of human nature. But scripted comedy and stand-up comedy, like it's not everybody has good timing and not everybody can like hit the physicality in like a specific order like that. Because it's like dancing. It's an incredible art skill. And that's why there were only a handful of people from that time period who like still stand out to us and who have been inspiring all genres ever since. And so, I'm always like a big defender of comedy because it's my favorite genre. It's a genre that I work in, but it's also like, I think it gets kind of shit on a lot and regulated to just like very basic because there's so many just like, goofy, lowbrow things. But, and I think sometimes even these movies at the time were thought of as lowbrow.
Yeah.
And it just is not something most people can do. And like we said here, they're risking their lives. And again, I'm just going to say I'm a huge fan of the Jackass movies. Yeah. And I am always talking about how they risk their lives to make us laugh and to do these outrageous creative stunts that are so frightening and bizarre and just like, I don't know. I've never had more fun than when I go to see those movies in the theater. And I do think there's like a silent film element to them. 100%. Has anybody written this paper before? Am I going to be the person who submits this to a journal?
Do it.
Yeah, I think you should.
Johnny Knoxville is a modern day Buster Keaton.
Yes.
Totally.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Patent pending.
No, totally. Yeah, there's just something... I mean, I guess it all comes from like the vaudeville tradition, right? Of like in terms of someone exhausting everything they have at their disposal to make you laugh or to entertain you. And that's like
and he was a vaudeville.
The Jackass. Johnny Knoxville? Buster Keaton.
With his parents. It was a family group.
It's funny, they all were. Him, Chaplin.
Yeah, Chaplin.
Yeah. Interesting.
Should we do sight and sound?
Let's do sight and sound. Let's start with sight.
Guests first.
What was your favorite sight from the general?
Okay, I listed many things because there were so many good sights. And I think I am going to have to go with the very basic one of him flying off the bike.
Yes.
Which is like the second bit after the rail car part is funny. The hand cart part's funny, but like and it also is going to be my favorite sound because there's like a bonk that happens when he falls off the bike. That
was almost my favorite sound.
Such a funny, I rewound it and watched it a few times and it's like, this is great. The bike itself is funny. The way he falls is funny. The fact that it's like the same joke twice, but works even harder with the bike is great.
And it's because the music swells and you think like he's doing
gonna catch it.
And then he falls and it like plops.
Here, let's play it right now.
Fantastic.
Nice. That's honestly, I love the combined sight and sound.
That's a rarity here.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I was like, I hope this isn't cheating. This I made a long list, but I really, it's the thing that stood out to me. It wasn't topped for me, even though there were so many great sights and sounds.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jackie?
Oh, cool. Okay. Should I do just sight? Mine are separate.
Why don't you just do both? Let's do both.
Yeah, I started a precedent.
My sight is it's got to be when he dislodges that one log. So he sits at the front of the train. He's literally on a moving train. He's sitting on it. And there's like a log, which is a railroad tie, I guess. And he's trying to get it out of the way. And he uses the other one in his hand and perfectly bounces it and it flips.
Yes.
You can't make that up. Like that was...
practice.
A 1 in a million. Yeah. And like he's moving. If he didn't get it, he could have seriously gotten hurt.
Yeah.
So that's my favorite sight because I just think it's an incredible trick. My favorite sound is when the cannon explodes. It's kind of similar to the bike thing because it like the music really, really swells and then it fires. And then once you see it hit the Union guys, the music, there's like an explosion and the music gets big. And yeah, I'm just going to play it.
Nice.
So that's my favorite sound. It's just gorgeous.
Beautiful. My sight, it's so many, but the one I picked the one that really wowed me, again, 1926, but we're talking the last couple years now of the silent era. The talkies are just a couple years away, but I love the shot. He's on top of the train. Remember that where he's on top of the train?
So we can't stop talking
that's
about
the part.
it.
When he's on the train. That's my So he's on top of the train, and then behind him are a bunch of people in covered wagons, and the camera is moving in the other direction. So you see Buster Keaton on top of the train moving in one direction behind him, and it's like that really shallow depth of field, and then you see long depth of, you see the long focus, and then you see the covered wagons moving the other direction, and it's just this beautiful
Amazing. Yeah.
Jesus. My microphone was falling over
You're
there.
doing your own little slapstick bit over there.
I am. Yeah. Too bad everyone else can't see this. Favorite sound. This is so basic, but it's the main theme from Carl Davis's score.
The theme's great. I would listen to that while
so
writing.
good.
It's great, right? We always feel a little weird when we do favorite sound for silent films just because Carl Davis's score was not there in 1926 when the movie premiered. But it's a great score.
But you just hated all the other original sounds so much.
Exactly. Yes.
It's grating.
So here's a little clip.
You touched on something with those wagons. Do you guys remember the shot
Oregon Trail?
of all the what?
Oregon Trail?
No. The shot.
Is that before your time?
The Oregon Trail? Like, I know about it.
Oh, okay.
Technically, the Oregon Trail was before all of our
That's
times,
true.
but the 8-bit game that started in the early 90s.
Yeah.
Did you play the
No.
computer game Oregon
No, I
Trail?
didn't. See, I knew you were referencing something. I knew you weren't referencing the actual Oregon Trail. What are you
Was that
referencing?
before your time? Not
It's
me.
a
I'm
game?
200 years old.
Wait, you don't know the game, the Oregon Trail?
No.
Oh, see.
A board
Very
game?
fun.
No.
No, it's a computer game.
Game Boy?
No,
It's
computer.
like that, the Apple IIgs.
Yes.
Floppy disk.
And what was it?
game.
You were like a settler on the trail?
Yeah.
Yeah, you control
You're
a family.
you're in a covered wagon, and
Wow.
you had a certain amount of supplies, and you could hunt, and
You could die of dysentery.
you could die of
That was
so
the most
many
common
things.
way.
I learned about all of the ways you could die before vaccines from
Yes.
playing Oregon Trail. And then you meet different native tribes, and sometimes you trade with them, or sometimes they're pissed at you, rightfully so.
Yeah.
They'll kill you. But it was very educationally based for computer games of that era.
Interesting.
And then it went through a few. I mean, the one I first played was like an 8-bit on Apple IIgs, but it did become like a PC game with like better graphics eventually that I thought was way less fun.
Yeah. They actually just came out with another version on Nintendo Switch, which I
Oh, wow.
immediately downloaded because I was like feeling very nostalgic.
Is it fun?
Yeah. But they like gamified it a little more.
That's the thing. I
I
really
know.
just want the basics. It's just
Same.
like Duck Hunt, you know? I'm
Yeah,
like, I just want to
exactly.
do the one thing. I don't need all the
Did you ever
extras.
play any of the sequels, like the Yukon Trail?
No.
Oh my God, the Yukon Trail. That one was my favorite. I loved the Yukon Trail.
I liked, my favorite part of Oregon Trail was you could pick how fast your oxen walk, and it was the oxen pace. And I don't remember what the first two were, but the third pace you could pick was grueling.
Yes,
pace.
grueling.
And if you ever picked grueling, your ox, usually the yoke would break or your oxen would collapse and die.
Oh my God.
But the visual of it was so funny. The little 8-bit, their legs would move so fast. And my best friend Katie Parrish and I, we'd be on our computer time and we would just be cracking up at the little oxen's grueling pace. And Isaac, my partner, and I still reference. We're like, oh God, stop going at grueling pace.
Yep.
My yolk is going to break.
Yeah, that was where I learned the word grueling.
Yeah, me too. Isn't that interesting? You can like trace certain things back to school actually making a difference.
Yeah, the computer lab.
Oh, I loved computer time.
Yeah, it was so good.
Now I resent it deeply, but back then when it was only an hour,
Same.
It was a
it
novelty.
was special. Yeah.
Yeah,
Let's go back to that time.
I know. We should.
I was gonna say, do you guys remember the shot of the horses?
Oh, right. You were in the middle of something before we were like, what if this podcast was about Oregon Trail?
Do you remember the shot of all those horses?
Yeah,
Incredible.
that's where the Rolling Stones song "Wild Horses" came from.
Easily.
No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, man. I was like, wow. I did. Because I want to learn.
To Greg's humor.
I have an open mind, and that's a good thing.
Pauline. Okay, so Pauline Kael. We just have a little snippet for this one.
This is where we read Pauline Kael's review of the film.
Yeah, but this came out. I don't think she was born.
I don't think she was born
yet.
either.
Actually, no, I don't think she was. So we just have a little snippet here. We don't have a full review, but this is what she has to say. One of Buster Keaton's most celebrated comedies. It's a classic, and many people swear by it, although it isn't funny in the freely inventive way of his Steamboat Bill Jr. Its humor is too drawn out for laughter, and yet it has a beauty. It has the shape of comedy. The time is the Civil War. Actually, just forget I read that last line.
Wait,
Is that how it ends?
Then she just says Keaton plays a shy railroad engineer on a steam engine called the General. And that's the snippet.
Did she like it?
She thinks that
Sounds like she thinks it's mid.
she thinks it's mid. She thinks it's overrated, but that it has its own beauty.
Yeah, it has a charm to it.
Yeah.
Which I would never call it overrated, but I would say it has its own, it has a specific charm that keeps it necessary and enjoyable.
I think the biggest thing you can say about it, because a lot of people, a lot of modern filmmakers or a lot of legendary filmmakers will be like, I was most influenced by this. And it's like an old silent movie or black and white movie. And be like, yeah, sure. Not that I think that, but other people. And then you go back and watch it. And sometimes you're like, yeah, I guess I can see how you got the kernel for Apocalypse Now or whatever it is. But truly, I think if someone is interested in, if someone's an action fan or a chase movie fan or like,
Or a comedy.
or comedy,
slapstick,
exactly.
yeah.
I don't know how you could see this and not have a good time, because I think it, like,
And
just
not
from a
be
technical
inspired by
perspective,
it.
yeah, it holds up. Yeah,
There is stuff, that's happening here that you can still take inspiration from.
yeah,
And,
Of course.
and should.
yeah, totally, completely agree.
And I think that that's like what makes a film timeless, because there's so many films that are just like reworking something that's been done before. And people are always like, well, there aren't any new stories, which I deeply resent, because there are.
yeah,
Like there's so many people that have been marginalized that have never had the opportunities to talk about their lives through like the lens of art, So
Yeah.
I think there's tons of new stories. I'm excited to hear them. And there's so much of film is reworking something that's already been done in a less interesting or exciting way. And this is a movie that, like, even though it's 100 years old, is still very fresh in so many ways.
yeah,
And I think that that's like super fascinating, because it has this like really dusty old viewpoint in one way, but then technically it has like, and formally it's so fresh. It's so useful.
totally. It's like a buffet at a casino. Like, you have to know what to take and what to leave behind.
And that's film criticism in a nutshell, really.
Yeah, that's true.
Film criticism, just like a Las Vegas buffet,
Yeah.
folks.
I should have said a Reno buffet.
There you go. There's a lot less to take in that sense.
A Reno seafood buffet.
I have to ask you guys, because you're Pauline Kael fans, are you excited about Quentin Tarantino's next rumored last film?
We are. However,
Yes.
very confused. Is it about Pauline? Is it not? I feel like he keeps saying something different.
I feel like now he's saying it's more based on a different critic who started off like reviewing porn, like a porn critic, or like he started off. I forget who.
there are
It
porn
seems.
critics?
Yeah, there's a critic for anything.
I didn't know there were porn critics.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You gotta you have to figure out a way to give the AVN award somehow.
Well, especially back in the day when porn was, after Deep Throat and stuff in the 70s, everyone was going to see it in the theater. And it was like, it had a moment where it crossed through. Anyway, we'll save that for another time.
Another special episode. Bring me back for
Exactly,
the porn
yes,
episode.
obviously.
I would love to discuss porn.
Well, the thing too, and I think we talked about this before, is like in this golden age of physical media and all these like boutique Blu-ray labels, they've brought so much of the sexploitation stuff back that had been kind of covered up and dusted away. And there's a lot of stuff getting released right now, like Doris Wishman box sets that I have, or like
that box set is amazing.
Yeah, it's incredible.
I would like to take credit I created the Doris Wishman section at Vidéothèque before that box set even came out, because we had like cobbled together the stuff that we had of hers on like tape and DVD.
Oh my God.
And
I love
so
that.
then
You're
I was
super
like,
cool.
I like pushed for that section to
That's very cool.
be there. And then when the box set came out, I was like, see?
You felt validated.
Yeah,
You're
because
like,
then people started coming in because it was like a major release.
Yeah.
And I was like, yes, just in time.
Yeah, and there's so much, like Severin just released a Black Emmanuel box set. Like there's a hunger for this stuff that was considered for so long to be just like smut. And now they're like, wait, there's a lot of artistic merit in this stuff. So
well, similarly to us talking about how like the ways that we thought of race and war and things at the 100 years ago, like we have also become less prude, and there's this aspect of now where people can be like, yes, it's like sexuality is art. Porn can be art. Like everything is art, and like it takes getting to a place of society where there's less moral panics and there's less like prudishness. And in a way you could argue that we're not quite there because of how little sex has been stripped from film. But in another way, this interest in films with sex in them shows that people are hungry for that. And again, it kind of underscores the way that corporations are sort of setting a tone, not the people.
Yeah,
Right.
totally. And I think if the general did have just the one little piece of titillation, it would have been one of the greats.
A nice,
Ooh.
quiet.
Maybe that's why it's heading up the
Maybe,
list.
right?
Maybe it's not the racism. It's the fact that there's no sex in it.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Letterboxed?
Yeah. Okay, so this one's 5 stars, and it's exactly what you said, Greg. Mad Max Fury Railroad.
Yeah.
That's cute.
It is, and I never thought about it until. Actually, why would I think about it? I just saw this movie.
Yeah, you did. You're like, I've never thought about that before.
I'm like, wait.
I have a 3-star review that says, I prefer it when movies aren't explicitly in favor of the Confederacy, even ones with exceptional choreography and expressive physical performances.
Wow.
Makes sense. I have one that's just a sincere one.
Yeah, that's great. We like sincere ones.
Okay,
too.
this one's 4 stars. Blown away by the scope and ingenuity, this film's reputation precedes itself, but that didn't stop it from beating all of my expectations. As is the case with Keaton's contemporary Chaplin, his stories work on a basic emotional level. Take away the gags and insane stunts, and what's left is sweet sincerity. Action-packed from start to finish.
Very sweet.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, because I think we were talking about how it's like, Keaton doesn't have the emotional beats necessarily that Chaplin does, but
This
person
feels it.
says, argues against that.
I like it.
This one's 4 stars. It's really interesting. An elaborate kinetic metaphor for itself, positioning movies as trains, filmmakers as engineers, and directing as keeping it all on the tracks, fully informed by the anxiety of having your passion project taken away from you.
Wow.
What do you guys think about that? It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a bad read.
It's actually a really good take.
I have a 4.5 star. It's kind of long, so I'm just going to pick out a couple segments here. But they open by saying, I love this. The General is a great big dream about all the cinema could become. They say the General manages to have the scope of an epic, but still retain the authorship of one man, Buster Keaton. It's an early type of auteur cinema, and one that has existed only rarely in all the decades following. Keaton had a grand and magnanimous vision and fulfilled it with his own style and character. And then they finish by saying, preserved. Yeah. They say how Keaton managed in the early days of cinema to nail the balance of the bombastic and personal that directors still chase after this to this day, might be a mystery lost in the noise of the talkies and buried in the celluloid shards of the past.
Wow. Just got chills.
Luckily, evidence that it once existed is preserved for all time in the general.
Oh. Poetry.
Yeah.
I have a 1.5. It's really dumb. Not really a big fan of silent films. This is the first one I ever seen. Maybe I'm being a bit harsh, but oh well.
Jesus. That's, I feel like, actually, I do think this is a good, if someone's never seen a silent movie, at least in my point of view, especially in the age of Fast and Furious, FVF, that's not it at all. I think that this is the one to show someone as the first one.
Action packed. It is. It's an action comedy, which is a very popular genre today.
Yeah.
Do you guys like limericks?
Yes.
Yes.
So we've got a limerick here, a 4-star limerick. Spend some time with Keaton Buster. With courage, he'll try to muster the engine that could pick up some wood on his locomotive thruster.
Oh my God.
Wow.
Amazing.
I feel like
wrote
that review just brought in some of the sexuality maybe that the movie was.
Yeah, that's what I'm glad you picked up on that. I tried to give that to my
I did not expect to talk about
sex
porn
so
and
much.
sex so much in this episode. It's been
That's
great.
my fault. Yeah, I'll do that to almost any movie that comes up.
No, that's the beauty of it, and the general needs it. So
the general needs
yeah.
You guys know the actress? I just remembered this. I forgot to say it in the specs. The actress was there was like this guy who found all these women and they were called like something's bathing beauties.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, she's one of them.
Oh,
that's where
okay.
he found her.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, I know. I forget the name.
That was like
too,
the most
yeah.
vague historical
Sounds like a
fact
Florida
ever.
attraction in the mid-century.
It does, yeah.
But yeah.
That's great. Well, this has been the general. This has been super fun.
Thank you, Lucé, for coming in.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Thank you for supporting Videothèque and physical media and small businesses.
Always.
It's really great to get to talk about a place that I'm so passionate about.
It's great to talk to you about it as well.
Thanks.
And
you can rent The General and all of Buster Keaton's films. And I mean, we have 4 large shelves of silent movies. So if you're interested in getting into it at all and you're in SoCal, then please come
Videothèque
check
is
it
the
out.
place.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to tell people a little bit about your podcast too.
Oh, yes. So my podcast, not about film, It's Always Halloween, is a year-round Halloween history and storytelling podcast. And I do original research about the different icons of Halloween. And I like to go through history, sometimes all the way back to antiquity, to understand different traditions and different things that scare us. And then I have a hotline and an email where people write and call in, and they share their own personal histories with Halloween, and we kind of weave the international large-scale histories with the personal history to kind of get flush out what this tradition means to us worldwide.
It's so cool. I love that.
Thank you.
That's
yeah,
great.
and you can listen to it everywhere. And it's on Instagram at It's Always Halloween Podcast, and I have a Patreon as well, patreon.com/It's Always Halloween. Only if you already subscribe to the site, to you guys' to Seen and Heard. Don't just go to me. You have to subscribe to both. I'm not trying to bite your style here. Take your listeners.
And thank you again for doing the giveaway with us. Congrats to whoever won the giveaway.
Yes.
We don't know
yet.
Because we're coming to you from the past.
Yes.
But congrats to whoever won.
And then I should say too that like you can video. You can follow Videothèque on Instagram at Videothèque. It's video library in French. And then you can also follow us on Twitter at VidTech. And I can give you guys those handles for your show notes as well.
That would be great. And yeah, tech is THEQUE.
Yeah, correct. And you can follow me at LTB Comedy on all social media. And I have Videothèque. And It's Always Halloween linked in all of my bios.
Yeah, you guys won't have a problem finding Videothèque.
Yeah.
We'll make sure that.
Yeah, and we'll be on your Instagram because of the
Yes.
giveaway.
Can't wait.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you guys'
Lucé.
dedication to cinema and physical media.
No,
We
thanks.
appreciate yours.
Yes,
Thank
absolutely.
you. This is such a thrill.
Well, what are we doing next week, Jackie? We're going back to Bresson.
We are?
Yeah, Pickpocket.
I love
Which is like the big Bresson.
I don't think that's the big one.
What, is it the donkey one?
Yeah.
The bad donkey
one?
Just kidding. I'm just kidding. Pickpocket is next week. So do join us for that. Lucé, thank you so much for joining us. It was such a pleasure.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.
And we'll see you all next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Special thanks to the patrons at our highest tier, John Pennington and Cynthia Fordwell. Seen and Heard is an official podcast of the Arroyo Film Club. We'd love to hear from you. If you want to drop us a line, you can find us on email at hello@seenandheardpod.com or on Instagram @seenandheardpod.